50 years since we even had a drought close to this bad. So hopefully it'll be another 50 years before we do. And hopefully this one's over. There's no guarantee of that.
Looking into a rainwater catchment, or?
Oh, absolutely. But rainwater catchment's great for personal use, but a garden takes a lot of water. I don't think I could have enough catchment to water my garden.
Just pray for rain.
Amen. Amen. Okay, on to root crops. And root crops are pretty much all the same, be it radishes, carrots, beets, turnips, all of those things. The culture is going to be pretty similar. The thinning is very, very important. If you don't thin your root crops, you'll have all top and no root. If you're going to grow carrots, grow what they call the half-long varieties. You know, some carrots are really long, some carrots are little short things. There's Danvers half-long, Nantes, Red Corps Chantenay. These are all fairly short carrots. And in our soils, grow short carrots because your soil simply isn't deep enough to grow a good long carrot. Radishes, kind of like we talked about hot onions. If you don't water your radishes, you will have hot radishes. But plant the varieties that you like, whether it's color or anything else. I'll never forget, I don't know whether it's last year or the year before, we had a guy in here who said, oh, I plant tons of radishes. I can't stand them, I never eat them, but I plant them. And I say, why? And he said, because they grow so well. You know, anybody can grow radishes, but if you don't like radishes, don't waste the space on them. But radishes, along with these other things, when they are first up and growing, they are very, very tender. And be prepared, if we get an early freeze, to cover those things and protect them. Because once they get up to a fair size, man, they're totally cold hardy. But when they're just little bitty sprouts, that hard freeze it'll just simply kill out most of them. Plant them. There's tiny little seeds. Beets are a little bit bigger. Turnips are very tiny seeds. There's no way you're going to space the seed out adequately, and you're probably going to pick out 5 plants for every one that you leave behind. Once again, those sprouts are delicious, and they are very, very good for you. Don't throw them away. Pick them out, rinse them if they got dirt on them, and eat them and enjoy them. But spread those things out. Now, you can harvest beets, or you can harvest radishes, or just about any of these things when they're small, and they'll be just as tasty. Again, the flavor doesn't really change as they get bigger. They will get woody and pithy if you leave them in there for too long. The quality will really go down. But there's no set size that you need to let your radishes or your beets grow up to, you know, before you start harvesting. And by the way, if you want to plant baby carrots, if you like the little carrots, plant them and enjoy them. You know that stuff you get at the grocery store that's, you know, looks like baby carrots? That's not. Those little round things that are about this long and sort of torpedo shaped, those are not baby carrots. Those are what's left over when they peel a whole lot of the outside of the carrot off to use in other canning processes and things like that. That little itty bitty carrot thing you're getting is actually just the core of a big old carrot, and it's not nearly as good or tasty as a true baby carrot is. So if you like carrots, grow some baby carrots and you'll do very, very well with them. Yes, sir.
Are turnip greens just the leaves off the
Absolutely.
turnip plant?
Yeah. Now some varieties tend to make more foliage and less root. So if you're going for bulk turnip greens, you can choose varieties that are mostly foliage and very little root. But most of what you eat as turnip greens are simply the tops off of the bottom of that plant.
That's what I thought, but my wife asked me that the other day and I wasn't sure.
Good question. Chuck?
What's the difference between rutabaga and turnip?
Anybody know? I've never grown rutabagas, so I think it's kind of like onions and shallots. They're just closely related plants, but I honestly don't know.
They taste way different. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do?
And one of them is, the rutabaga is kind of a pale orange.
Right.
And turnips are more white.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're, I think it's sweeter. Rutabaga is a little sweeter.
Okay, other things, if you want to grow strawberries, now's the time to plant them. Everybody always wants to plant strawberries in the spring when they start buying the strawberries at Poteet or wherever. If you want to grow strawberries, to me, it's kind of like growing corn. It takes a lot of space to get a few ears of corn. It takes a lot of space to get a few strawberries, but if you just want the pleasure of growing your own, it's now time to put those in. Probably the last thing I want to mention as far as plants for cool weather are the so-called edible pod peas or snow peas. One of the most easily grown, one of the most delicious plants that you can get in the garden. There is not a good commercial way to grow and harvest these things. That's why they're so expensive in the store. If you went to a place that produces beans commercially, if you went to a place that produces tomatoes commercially, they don't go out, I mean, if it's a big operation, they don't go out and pick tomatoes. They grow them up to a certain size, the machine goes along, rips them out of the ground, puts the whole plant through, or the whole tomato plant into a processor, strips the tomatoes off of it, and turns the rest into mulch. Can't do that with snow peas. You almost have to pick them by hand, and that's why they're $6 a pound if you go out and buy them. But you can grow beautiful snow peas here in South Texas. The secret about growing snow peas is cold weather, up to a point, does not bother the plants, but it will keep them from blooming and therefore making the peas. In the past, we've pretty much always grown snow peas by planting them sometime in December or January. They grow through the colder winter months, and then just in the spring, just as we get past the danger of a hard freeze, we start getting the blooms and start getting those absolutely delicious peas, and this continues up until the spider mites wipe them out in early summer. Because we have had such mild winters the past 3 or 4 years, a lot of people are growing a fall crop of snow peas, edible pod peas. If I have time, I will plant some this year. The theory being that they will grow fast enough that you'll have a chance to start harvesting from them before we start having the freezing weather that will limit the production. Now, if you're going to grow the snow peas, the edible pod peas, there are bush forms and there are vining forms. I find you get a lot more peas off of the vining forms than you do off the bushes. Plus, it's a great thing to do with those extra tomato cages you have that you didn't plant, full of tomatoes. What I'll do is I'll make my little circle, I'll plant about 6 peas in there, then I'll put my tomato cage down on top of it, and man, it'll grow up as high as the tomato cage, and you'll walk around and pick 15 or 20 good snow peas off every cage. Again, I don't tell people around here when I'm first starting to harvest snow peas, because they don't ever make it out of the garden. When you just go along and pick them and eat them, you talk about something that's delicious. It's only when they really come into, what's that? Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Pick them, eat them raw.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, with everything out of your garden, if you want the maximum nutrition, eat it fresh. Every time you cook it, you're reducing the quality of what's in there. Now, and you stop and think, how many things that we're talking about have to be cooked? I like fresh broccoli. I like fresh cauliflower. I don't know if I'd eat fresh turnips. Of course, I don't know if I'd eat turnips to begin with. But all these things, if you can eat them fresh, uncooked, unprocessed, that's when you're going to get the absolute maximum nutrition out of them. And for those of y'all, like all of us do, shopping at the grocery store, there's an interesting thing to consider. Which is going to be the most nutritious? Granted that none of it is nutritious as it should be, but, oh, thank you, sir. Which is more nutritious? The fresh, let's say the fresh broccoli that you buy, right there in the grocery store, or the broccoli that's frozen that you buy over in the freezer section, or something that's canned. Fresh beans, let's say you see a bin over here of fresh beans, and you see canned beans over here. Which of those, yeah, I agree, but which of those are probably going to be more nutritious? The canned and the frozen. Why? Because they were picked from the field and processed. The ones that you're buying fresh in the grocery store were probably picked anywhere from 3 to 7 days ago. And so you're getting old produce if you buy it the day that it gets put on the shelf. And what you're getting frozen or canned was a lot fresher at the time that it was frozen or canned. So this idea of going to the grocery store and buying fresh produce, it's nothing like picking fresh produce out of your own garden. Believe me, those of y'all that have done it know the difference in taste. Your body certainly knows the difference in the composition of what you're eating. And what did Bruce Dooley tell me or say on the air the other day? I think there's a website that's called something like What's on My Food. or something like that, go and look at it, and look at the pesticides that are on each individual crop. Again, you just simply don't really want to go to the grocery store and buy this stuff. You can grow a wonderful garden. Now, every garden is going to be a mixture of success and failures, and if you have to have 100% success to